The following program is intended for mature audiences.
A democratic republic of sports. The Sportsocracy with ESPN Asheville hosts Tank Spencer and Jeremy Greene.
And welcome into the Sportsocracy. Time to talk more off-season reviews. I'm Tank Spencer. He's Brian Haynes. And we are in the Wicked Weed studio. WickedWeedBrewing.com off-season review for
the Seattle Seahawks.
The Seahawks are a team that has not had a season with fewer than double-digit wins, but only once in the past decade.
Yeah.
However, 2021 seems to be a very different story, at least as we are prognosticating here in the Sportsocracy. There is no doubt Russell Wilson, they should do everything possible to keep Russell Wilson happy. Here's the thing. I don't buy this whole the kerfuffle is gone.
Yeah, the reports out of Seattle is that he is somehow happy with the direction that the offense is going now, so that he is going to, play the good fella and be out there and be Russ and let Russ cook and all that stuff. I just don't believe it. I don't believe it at all.
Nope.
I think he wants out, and he still wants out, and it's just they're not going to let go of him.
Right.
He's under contract, so we're in the same situation we've been in with all these other quarterbacks that we've talked about lengthily about it all the time. The problem here is I just don't know what Pete Carroll as a coach is anymore. He used to be this defensive guy, and then they would just run the ball down your throat, and they won, and then Russ would do what he does. Mm-hmm. Then they just started to be declining on the defensive side of the ball. Mm-hmm. They lost a lot of the Legion of Boom. Everybody kind of moved on. They still have a couple, like KJ Wright is still there, but what are they still? They're gone from that. Then they started to still want to run the ball, only throw a couple times a game. And then it was, we're going to let Russ throw 40 times a game. And it just seems like they haven't figured out the right thing. And basically what they need to do is protect Russell Wilson, let him do what he needs to do, and somehow figure out how to play defense in this league, because you are in the toughest division and are by far the worst team in this division. Mm-hmm.
I agree with that. I think that this year is going to be the wake-up call for Seattle Seahawks fans to go, something is definitely wrong here. Mm-hmm. Best offseason addition that they had was Gabe Jackson.
Yeah, 100%.
Being able to pick him up in a trade, that was the best thing that they did in the offseason.
It was the only thing they did.
Right. They re-signed Chris Carson. They re-signed Carlos Dunlap. They picked up Ahkello Witherspoon, who's not a bad cornerback from the San Francisco 49ers.
Aldon Smith.
Is he going to solve all of their secondary problems? No, they're not going to do that.
No.
Aldon Smith being added will help the pass rush this year.
For about 4 games.
Yeah. It just, I don't know. I look at this team and I go, there are a whole lot of question marks outside of Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, and Tyler Lockett. Mm-hmm. We know they're going to be able to move the ball offensively. We know that Russell is crafty enough, even if his line doesn't hold up, which, I don't think this is the worst offensive line in football, but they're not far off, in my opinion.
And they didn't they did get Gabe Jackson, which was, I think, big for them. But it seemed like that was one of the biggest things that Russell talked about in the offseason, and they just seemed to just not address it as much as I thought they should, especially in the draft as well.
They didn't have any choice in the draft.
They had 3 draft picks. And I get it. And I think Dwayne Eskridge is going to be a decent player in this league. Is he going to be your 3? Because right now, Freddie Swain shouldn't be your 3. So it's not something. They also got Cade Johnson later on in the draft, or I think free agency, actually, who was someone that Jeremy really liked coming out of South Dakota State, I believe it was. Somebody that was at a smaller school that didn't get drafted, they pick him up on the undrafted free agency, and he's someone that they could possibly go to. They re-signed Rashad Penny, which was kind of, I guess you had to, and bring back Chris Carson, which I think was a must. If they would have let him go, that would have been a dangerous territory, I believe. Again, this is a team that with Russell Wilson at quarterback is going to win some games, period. He is that good of a quarterback. He can win games for you alone. How many of those games are? I just don't know.
I don't think it's going to be a whole lot of games. They have a really rough schedule.
Oh, my God.
They have a really tough schedule this year. Let's just pull it up and look real quick. They open up the season at Indianapolis, and then they take on Tennessee. Then they get Minnesota on the road in week 3. That could easily be a win. I'm not going to chalk that up as an automatic loss. The first 2, absolutely. That's 2 losses. Then you got back-to-back San Francisco and the LA Rams.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to beat them either time this year. So let's go ahead and say you're already at 6 losses. Then you have at Pittsburgh. We don't know what Pittsburgh's going to be like in week 6, but I'm guessing they're going to be okay. That could be a game you lose. Green Bay, that's a loss. Arizona, you got at least 1 loss there. I think you could get swept in that series this year, but it's always tied in the NFC West, so maybe not. Then you go at the Washington football team, the San Francisco 49ers in week 13. To me, there are easily 9 to 10 losses on this schedule.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I mean, you're going to have to fight hard not to lose 9 to 10 games this year.
It's going to be a tough season for them. I think that, and I don't think the fans are quite ready for it. I think they still think a lot with Russell Wilson being their quarterback that automatically makes them a 9, 10, 11 game winner.
Yeah.
But the problem is San Francisco is much better this year than they were last year. They're going to, I mean, there's 3 teams in this division that are going to make the playoffs, and Seattle's not one of them, and they can't win enough games. I just don't see it in the schedule. Their non-division schedule is so tough. I can't see them winning that many games. And I had them winning 8 games, which was the most on our entire staff. But again, I just feel like this is the last year. I don't know if they can go into another offseason, and Russell, I think he'll be ready to go.
You think in this upcoming offseason that they're going to do a deal?
They might try to do some sort of deal. I don't know if they're going to be able to, but especially because, who else are they going to go to? And it's not like next year is a deep quarterback draft, as we talked about a lot. There's Keen Slovis, Sam Howell, and yeah. So...
Well, if they decide to trade Russell Wilson, then maybe Jimmy Garoppolo will be out on the market next year. They can pick him up. How about that?
Yeah.
Do you feel better about that?
Not necessarily.
The front office seems convinced that this thing is over. That they've gotten the assurances from Russell Wilson that they met all of his requirements. He wanted a better offensive line, so they went out and got in Gabe Jackson, and they say, oh, check mark, got that one. Not so sure that that's going to be enough. Although I do like the pick of Stone Forsythe
at the end of the draft. I got to give it to him where credit's due. That was a good pick late in the draft. They only had 3 picks the whole draft, so I just felt like there was more pieces out there that were available that I didn't even hear them connected to any of the free agents or anything like that. There was no connection. It just seemed like where everybody was loading up. You see Kansas City loading up for their offensive line when they knew it was a need, and it just seems like Seattle knew what they needed to do for Russell Wilson, and they just didn't do enough in my book. But that doesn't necessarily mean Russell knows this better than anybody. He could be happy. I think it's a lot of smoke and mirrors coming out of Seattle right now.
Yeah, he could be happy, but again, I'm going to doubt it. They have a new offensive coordinator. Shane Waldron came over from the Los Angeles Rams. He was an assistant there, and he's now the offensive coordinator. Maybe he's got the plan to let Russ cook.
He had coffee with Sean McVay at a diner one time, so obviously he's a genius.
Right, but Russell Wilson, maybe they're going to let Russ cook, and they're actually going to go all in on this, because that's what I felt like last year. They lost a lot of their steam late in the year because they stopped doing it. They were winning so many games at the beginning of the year with Russell Wilson just slinging the ball everywhere, and they backed off on it later on in the season.
They got to be able to protect him, though. He can't get hit as many times as he was getting, he's been hit, sacked as many times as he's been sacked. I mean, if you can protect Russell Wilson, he can tear you apart. And they do have, DK Metcalf is one of the best young wide receivers in this league, and he's one of the best wide receivers I've seen in a long time. He is a beast.
Yeah, the pass rush was a huge problem last year. They could not get to the quarterback at all. In fact, did you know Jamal Adams, who they traded for, and only played 9 games for the Seattle Seahawks, he actually tied for the league or tied for the team lead in pressures of the quarterback last year with 26.
Yeah.
He had 26 pressures of the quarterback in 9 games, and he was the leader on the team.
Yeah, it's not
That's
good when you're bringing your
bad news.
safety up for that many pressures.
Absolutely. And maybe, just maybe, Carlos Dunlap will give them the fight off the edge that they need. Carrie Hider has been added as well. It's not like they went out and got like superstars. They just went out and got some dudes that they think they can make a rotation, and you can get to the quarterback that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I think individually I like all of those players. I don't know how you're going to run your rotation, how you're going to get after the quarterback, but that is a big problem, especially when you're looking at the division that you're in. You're going to have to put pressure on Kyler Murray. You got to put pressure on Matt Stafford. You got to put pressure on Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance, whichever one it is. I just don't see them being real competitive within their division, and I don't like their chances really for much outside of the division.
It's going to be...
To me, they're clearly better than some of the teams in the NFL right now, but they're not high enough on that list. They're right there in that mediocre area, and I will be surprised if they get 9 wins out of this year.
Yeah, I'm looking at them to get in that 7, 8, possibly 9. I don't know how you can get to 9 with... You're going to lose 6 games in your division more than likely. You know, they could get 1 at home, but that schedule is just brutal. I mean, starting off in Indianapolis and Tennessee is just, that's kind of a rough start for a team that's trying to figure out some things.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, hey, again, want to say Russell Wilson is Russell Wilson.
I love him.
And he just does crazy things, and he surprises people every single year. I mean, I thought last year they had no shot. And he was playing unbelievably MVP ball up until the end of the year.
You thought they had no shot, and they won 12 games last year.
Yeah, I didn't think they were going to beat, not say no shot, I just didn't think they were going to be the team they were.
Right.
I thought they were more closer to again, like what I thought this year, but we'll see. We'll see. Again, this is the same team, and I just think the division's too much for them this year.
I agree. The last few years we have thought, when's the downfall? When are they going to regress basically? Over the last 3 years, they have improved their record by 1 win every year.
Yeah.
They went 10-6, 11-5, 12-4 last year. I think you're going to see a big dip, and it could possibly be Phil. Where the hell did that come? Pete Carroll's worst year as the head coach of this team.
And as young as Pete looks, he's pretty old.
No, he's not a spring chicken.
And so how many more years does he have left to begin with? So.
I mean, he's got a few more years. He will probably end his career as the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks unless this thing just completely tanks and Russell Wilson's gone and they end up as a 4 or 5 win team like they were, before Pete Carroll arrived. That's the only way I see Pete Carroll. I'm not even considering a head coaching change for this team because the consistency is there. Like I said, only 1 time in the past 10 years have they had fewer than 10 wins.
Well, who you can do better? That's what we talk about a lot.
Exactly.
Who's better that you can go get?
Could be a very rough year for the Seattle Seahawks. I think they are by far the 4th best team in this division. You got all the other 3 at the top. Everybody else has just improved so much, and this team has either regressed or stayed stagnant where they are. I'm Tank Spencer. He's Brian Haynes, and we are in the Wicked Weed studio, wickedweedbrewing.com. Drink different. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you get all of our off-season review content right here in the Sportsocracy. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.